who are your parents, and we just want to know all the good stuff about your actual genesis.
Actually, I was born and raised in St. Petersburg, right there in St. Pete. My mom's Mizelle Bryant, my father's Matthew Bryant. I was born right there in 1968 in St. Pete. I think it was at Bayfront Hospital. I can't swear to that. I don't remember the day, but I know it was. I was born in St. Petersburg, product of Gibbs High School, 1986.
Excellent. So your parents are from where? Where's your mom from?
My mom's from Dade City, Florida, and my father is from St. Petersburg.
Oh, that's marvelous.
Mhm.
So Dade City, Florida. Do you know any of your family there, or did your mom move to St. Petersburg, and that
Right.
was
Yeah, she
pretty
moved
much
to
it?
St. Petersburg very young. And there's an annual family reunion there with she was a Smiley. There's a Smiley and the Pearson. That's their side of the family, and that's the one that is still in Dade City today.
Oh, that's excellent. And your father is born as a St. Petersburg native.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would your parents describe you as a child?
They gave me a moniker. It didn't really stick except during certain situations. But they called me, from what I can remember early on, Trip, and I think that speaks for itself. A Trip. That was one. So yeah, I think that would be it. That would be
Yeah,
it.
that definitely speaks for itself. So, how did you come to know the Lord?
um, I was raised in the church. My first hero, uh, for lack of a better term, was my grandfather. He was the pastor, Pastor James Bryant, Sr., and he pastored the church Faith Temple in Largo, Florida. And part of his drive to Largo was to stop by and pick up me and my siblings. So I started off in the corner on the drums, and my brother was on the organ as we kind of got a little older. And so I've always been in the church. I joke sometimes because we have revival every summer, and sometimes we have another one during the school year. So I always joke and say I got saved like 12 times because
Yes.
every time we had a revival,
Yes, you felt the Lord calling
you,
you.
you couldn't get off the floor until you said you were saved. So the only way to get off the floor and get out of terror was you had to say you were saved. So I got saved like 12, 13 times. And then I was actually in going to church. I think I was a junior in high school. And so my grandfather called me into his office after service, right before night service. Because in those days you had Sunday school, morning worship, then you had YPWW, then program, and then night service. So Sunday was an all day affair. So we were getting ready for night service. So he called me in his office and he said, Brother Mitchell, I heard that you've been doing the prayer at the school. Well, what would happen? I was the drum major at school, and I was a section leader before that for the drum line. So we would get in this big circle and, say a prayer, that the Lord would help us remember our parts and nobody would get hurt and blah, blah. So I was doing that just because I just knew how to pray. I mean, of course I knew how to pray. And so how he got wind of that, I don't know until this day, how he heard about that. But somehow he got back to him that I was doing this prayer every week before we went and started the field show. And so he said, I heard you've been doing the prayer at the school. It took me a minute. I said, oh, yes, sir. Yeah. I said, well, it's not really like a prayer. It's like, going on this field. And I was trying to explain to him. So before I could get my explanation out, my clarification, if you will, he said, so what you're trying to say is the Lord called you to preach? I was like, And the look on his face was one of such pride. He just took such pride, like, finally. And he had this grin on his face. And what can I say? I said, yes. And I didn't want to disappoint him. So he said, okay, get on the phone, call your mama, tell your mama, the Lord call you to preach. We'll put you up tonight, and you can announce to the church, the Lord call you to preach, and then we'll get your trial sermon. And so that night, I sat in the pulpit next to him. That morning I was on the drums. And now this night,
Hallelujah.
I'm sitting in the pulpit with him, and I just looked at him, and he was just beaming. He was just beaming. And so I made my announcement. I was just so nervous. I could barely even stand to say it. And I said it. He said, Lord's we're gonna set up a time for you to do your trial sermon. And then after that, and he had it all laid out. And unfortunately, shortly after that, he had a stroke, and he was not able to come back to church like he did. So he actually never heard me preach.
Wow.
He never heard me preach. He heard me that night say that's what that the Lord had called me at that time. But he never actually heard me preach. But I'm glad at least he saw something before I did. And I preached. He passed in 1987, and I did my trial sermon in 1989. So
Lord
2
have
years
mercy.
after he passed. So yeah. But he did get that night. He called me out on it. Maybe I just needed that shove, to kind of go forward. But yeah, that was I graduated in '86, and I started preaching in '89, and I've been preaching ever since.
What a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah. What
Mm-hmm.
a blessing.